Hi, it's Rich Tehrani here. We're at CTIA 2010 in Las Vegas. Thanks for watching the program. Today we've got Gary McDarby on. He's with Fifth Province Ventures, and he is the CTO. Gary, how are you?
How's it going, Rich? Nice to be here today.
So could you tell us a little bit about your company, please?
Well, yeah, the company's called Fifth Province Ventures. I might actually tell you what the Fifth Province is, Rich, if you don't mind. In Ireland, we have 4 provinces. There's the North, East, South, East, West, and South. And we, a lot of people don't realise that there's actually a 5th province. And in Ireland, the 5th province was, from historical times, the 4 kings of Ireland. If there was an issue that they couldn't agree upon, they would call a 5th province meeting. And the 5th province, everybody had to go to sort of a metaphorical place. And they couldn't leave that place till the problem was resolved.
Is that where all the snakes are?
Yeah, we didn't solve that with a 5th province venture. Yeah. But anyway, the principal idea is bringing lots of things together to a space till a problem is solved and then spinning it out. So in the business context, what we try to do is we try to take clever ideas in the ICT technology space, bring them in, prototype them, and don't put any constraints on them till the point where they're ready to go out, put them in front of an investor and then take them with us.
So yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier, just how you're you're really like a lubricant for startups.
That's right, very early stage startups. Like I say to a lot of people, ideas are where it's all at, but it's also the point where they're most fragile. And so an idea needs to be given a little bit of lubrication, as I say, a little bit of resources before people really appreciate it. So the idea is to take really good ideas and prototype them and get them to a point where they're interesting and tangible to people, and then bring the investors and the partners in at that point.
So how do you find those great ideas?
Well, it's based on a very simple thing, and it's something we're not doing very well, particularly in universities. I have to say the American universities are probably leading this now. But rather than having engineers sitting on one side of a campus and computer scientists and psychologists and humanities all separated, get those people together. And it's like being at the spokes on the rim of a wheel. Get them talking about different things. It's kind of a multidisciplinary, and ideas come out of that. A psychologist talking to a technologist, talking to an engineer, talking to a sociologist. There's a sort of a whole plethora of ideas come out of that potent mix. So that's essentially how we get the ideas.
So if let's say I'm an entrepreneur looking for assistance, I can just contact you as well. Is that true?
You can, yeah. And the way we would screen that is that we would come in and we would ask a series of questions about where did I think the ideas go? And it's the standard questions you would ask at any early stage. How do you scale it? How do you resource it? Where is its key impact? Who are the competitors? We would do all those kind of things. But that's kind of second stage. Our first stage is to get people together to produce the ideas in the first place. If we like the idea, and it's a collective decision, if we like that idea, we will then throw a few resources around it, build it, and get it in front of the investors.
So one of the things we're seeing more and more of at this show is location-based services, and how people are able to see local companies that they want to buy from, or the cafe, or
Sure.
restaurants, etc. What do you see happening in that space?
Well, that's actually one of the spaces we'd be most interested in. Sort of a meta point to the whole space is marvelous and all as technology has taken us into this world of connectivity and synchronization and always on and so on. The big concern I would have as a sort of a neuroscientist is that we are spending an awful amount of time on the online world. We're spending an awful amount of time connected. And at a fundamental level, I would struggle with that, because it comes at a cost of the real face-to-face, the real relationships, which, to be honest with you, have defined us as a species. If you think of what was the guiding principle that made us herd and gather together, out of which language came and out of which probably evolved consciousness, it probably was that desire to meet and mingle and be curious about one another. We do a little bit of that online, but there's a huge difference between having 5 very close friends and 600 connections on Facebook. So one of the platforms we're looking at is how do you use the amazing power of telecommunications for people to participate? Like, anybody can participate, old, young, different religions, different sexes, different perspectives, everybody can participate. But how do you leverage it so that those things turn into real deep connections? So we look at the location-based services platform, where you go into a location and you're anonymous initially, which is a great point to start off with. Anonymity gives you the ability to be more experimental, let's just say, with how you connect to people. And everybody does that in this particular platform. If connections are real, you might find that somebody very close to you likes Chopin that you never met, or somebody likes a particular sporting venue, or whatever it might be. You start a sort of a connection over that in the location. And then should you want to meet, you do. So it's really about making those connections that should happen that don't. And it's built on friendships and interests and passions that we don't often get to share with people because of physical and social barriers.
So you're increasing the opportunity for people to make friends with similar interests.
That's right, and you can imagine where that would have a real benefit to maybe people that are elderly, or where, for example, people might be lonely, or you can see it in places in a business context like this marvelous set that we have here, where how many people around you are key business connections that you don't have to go through a very big thick book to find, because for a start that's about a month out of date. How many people around you are key people that you should be talking to?
How many people here do you follow, let's say on Twitter, or you email with, or even speak with on the phone, and you walk right by them and you've never seen them, or
that's
vice
right.
versa?
Yeah. Now Twitter to some degree at a centralized level can help you with that. But I love the just-in-time element and the spontaneous element of human connectivity. Sometimes it's just a sparking of a comment or a status, and they're suddenly near you that can spark a whole depth of connection that we just simply don't get on the connectivity mechanisms that we have so far.
It seems that where the social networking is going in the location-based technology, Twitter now is enabled with the ability to broadcast location, and there are services like Foursquare and others.
Yeah.
So, and I believe Facebook as well can let people know where you are. So I think people are comfortable with that. So now if you can add on top of that another layer where you're able to connect with other anonymous people if you so choose.
Yeah. The thing is, it's a big step. We're obviously very comfortable being around people that we're familiar with, right? Are we totally comfortable with putting something on our phone that says our closest friends or our closest contacts are around us? Probably. Are we? Do we want to always state where we are? I'm wondering, do we all the time? I think you should be able to turn that on and off. And when you want to be anonymous, but you still want to see who's around you, I think that should be an option to you. So I think these connections, starting from a point of anonymity, are a very powerful place to begin with. And are also a very powerful place to make connections that are very deep and very real, because we can't, in a social or a physical setting, advertise what we're deeply interested in a normal real, perhaps maybe on a T-shirt or something you might, but you know what I'm saying. Saying suddenly that you love classical music, or the poets, great Irish poets or whatever that you like, that's not something you begin a conversation with. But you can, as it turns out, in the virtual world, and that can be something that can spark something in somebody else, from which can lead to a real conversation.
That makes a lot of sense, and I really appreciate your time on the program today.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks for taking the time.
Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Pleasure.
Pleasure.
Good luck.